Hello, my name is Cindy Smith, Gifted and Talented Specialist for Pueblo City Schools. This webinar is to introduce you to the new Gifted and Talented identification processes for our district beginning in February 2017. We will be walking through the areas of identification, the process to identify gifted students in all areas of identification, and qualifying assessments for the body of evidence. This webinar is suitable for building and district administrators, building gifted coordinators, and classroom teachers to help understand the process of gifted identification within our district. Please note that all processes are guided by the Colorado Department of Education and the laws of the Exceptional Children's Education Act, which is commonly referred to as ECEA. So first, what is gifted? So the characteristics of gifted students vary child by child. A common misconception: gifted students are the children who are hard workers, are attentive in class, learns skills easily, memorizes facts, correctly answers questions, gets good grades, and overall are just teacher pleasers. While gifted students may portray some or all of these qualities, it is important to note that many gifted children do not portray some or any of these qualities. According to Dr. Kingor, who is an expert in gifted character traits, notices that gifted students are ones who have an exceptional level of performance beyond grade level peers. They can generate and understand complex abstract ideas. They're self-directed learners, and they enjoy asking questions. So next we're going to talk about the different areas that we can identify a student in gifted and talented. The first area is general or specific intellectual ability. Intellectual ability refers to how a student thinks, reasons, and problem solves using general or fluid reasoning. The second area is specific academic aptitude. A student may demonstrate exceptional ability in one or more of academic content areas to include reading, writing, math, social studies, science, and world language. The third area refers to our talent aptitudes, which consists of visual arts, music, drama theater arts, psychomotor abilities that include both dance and athletics, creativity, and leadership. What I'd like to show you now is the district process to identify a student gifted in each area of identification. These documents reflect the requirements of ECEA, and our district's resources were taken into consideration for measures to use. It is important to note that the process will look similar across all identification areas, but it is the body of evidence, or the BOE, that changes based on the area of identification. When looking through these documents, the first section is always a flowchart of the process. It is a one-page document that clearly defines what must be included in the BOE to determine identification. Keep in mind that one piece of evidence cannot determine giftedness, that several pieces of evidence must be collected to make a formal determination. One test cannot and should not include or exclude a student from the gifted program. You can locate these documents on the Gifted and Talented intranet page and the public web page, and we'll show you that toward the end. The second page is a referral form that can be completed by anyone who knows the student, or the student can refer themselves. Once a referral form is submitted, the gifted review team has 30 days to determine if formal identification is appropriate. This window is a legal one, so please adhere to this 30-day deadline. Once the referral form has been submitted, an authorization to test form should be sent home to parents. This form is found directly after the referral form in the identification packets. Following the authorization form is information specific to the area of identification. So here, in some areas, it will require a portfolio and a student response form in some, but not all, of the identification areas. The second to last page of the identification packet is the assessment profile sheet, where the review team will come together and input the data from the BOE collected. And on this page is where the team will make a formal identification, keep the student on a watch, or note that the student does not qualify for the Gifted and Talented program at this time. The final page is a notification letter to parents letting them know that their child has been formally identified and that the building GT coordinator will be contacting them shortly to set up an appointment to create the student's advanced learning plan. So with that, let's take a look at the different processes for identification. I'm going to make this a little bigger so that everyone can see. The first area is general or specific intellectual ability. Students may qualify in the area of general intellectual ability with a score of a 95th percentile or above on one or more batteries of a cognitive test. The determination team must collect and review additional data for the BOE to develop the student's learning profile. A gifted determination based solely on a cognitive assessment score without any other qualifying data is the exception to the rule. A review team should use their professional judgment to determine if identification is appropriate by examining supplemental or non-traditional information collected through interviews, observations, or performances beyond the academic content areas. Students from underrepresented populations may not demonstrate gifted abilities through the use of traditional achievement data. When only cognitive ability assessment data meet criteria in a BOE, which is 95th percentile or above, the review team may determine that the student is identified with a general or specific intellectual ability. This also meets portability requirements. Okay, so let's go through the document. On page 1, you will see the flow chart that outlines the process. The first step is that students are referred based on a referral form or a cognitive abilities test. Pueblo City Schools employs a universal screening of the cognitive abilities test at both the 2nd and 6th grade levels, which will also count as a referral for the gifted program. The second step is to build a body of evidence. Below you can see that the BOE must include at least 2 of the bulleted items below. On the norm referenced observation scale, the scales for identifying gifted students, or SIGs, is recommended as there is a section specific to general intellectual ability and will give a percentile range in that area. Step 3 includes the formal identification process, which is made up of a team of educators to review the BOE. Okay, so page 2 is a referral form that uses a Likert scale to come up with a point total based on the student's academic characteristics. Ranges for the identification from the referral form is found on the assessment profile sheet, which I'll show you in just a minute. The following sheet is the assessment authorization form, which must be signed by parents in order for schools to continue in the identification process. In it, it will say your child has been recently identified in the area of. This will change based on what packet you're looking at. It talks about the collection of evidence, and it gives the parents the opportunity to support this process or decline. Once the BOE is collected, a team of educators will meet and document data on the assessment profile sheet. Here you can see you put in the data for the referral form, the cognitive abilities test, the norm referenced observational scale, that's the SIGs we were talking about a minute ago, And then some optional data, if you pull in a portfolio or juried performance of work or a student interview. Based on the evidence collected, the team will make a determination and mark it in the summary box. A student can either be recommended to the gifted and talented program, can remain on a gifted watch, or does not qualify for the gifted and talented program at this time. A copy of this assessment profile sheet should be sent to the district gifted and talented coordinator once completed, regardless of the determination made. If the student is formally identified, a notification letter should be sent to the child's parents immediately after the identification, along with a follow-up conversation that sets an appointment to create the child's advanced learning plan. And that's right in here. So the parents will know that you will be contacting them shortly to set up that appointment to meet as a team. Okay, so let's look at the specific academic aptitude packet. Again, this includes the areas of reading, writing, math, social studies, science, and world language. So prior to 2014, language arts was considered the area of identification. This has changed. Language arts is no longer an area of identification. Reading is a separate area of identification from writing. A student may be gifted in one and not the other, or in both. Excuse me. The BOE determines the areas of giftedness for each student. With the specific academic aptitude process, there are two different pathways to achieve formal identification. Is using a qualifying score from a cognitive abilities test. Any scores with a 95th percentile or higher is considered in the identification range. For scores in the 90th to 94th percentile, we place these students in a talent pool. The BOE can still be collected on talent pool students because one test cannot include or exclude a student used in step 1. The BOE must include at least 2 of the following measures as shown in the bulleted list. If using CMAS PARCC data, scores must show that the student received and exceeds expectation in the area in question. A district bank of approved assessments could be school city assessments for subjects that are non-state tested subjects. The observation scale recommended again is the SIGS. Student work and demonstration of giftedness is also used. From there, the formal identification process begins, and it is the same as the general and specific intellectual ability process. The second pathway is the same process with 2 exceptions. Instead of the cognitive abilities test in step 1, a student has a referral form to start the process. And now, the body of evidence must include at least 3 of the measures in the bulleted list. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the talent areas. Each area is different in its own requirements, but is authentic to the content being evaluated. So with these areas, formal identification is possible, but not typical at the elementary level. But a BOE can still be collected at that level and a student portfolio be started. So let's take a look at music first. The first step will come from a referral form. Remember that this form can be filled out by teachers, administrators, parents, or the student can even refer themselves. From there, a BOE is collected. This body of evidence will center on a portfolio that demonstrates exceptionalism in either music performance or music composition, as well as awards that the student has received. To receive formal identification, a student must show that they have been formally identified through a norm-referenced achievement test. And in music, we take the MAP, or the Musical Aptitude Profile, and a student must score in the 95th percentile or higher. They also need to perform at the annual Solo and Ensemble Festival. This is a local festival, and receive a superior rating. A 95th percentile on the SIGs in the creativity section. Now we have the referral form. If the student is an elementary school student, they only have to fill out this top section. Middle school candidates will complete the top 2 sections, and the high school candidate will complete all sections. Following the assessment authorization form, we have a portfolio checklist that includes all required elements for the student's portfolio. In it, you will see that the requirements are rigorous, and part of the portfolio is to give the students the opportunity to speak to their musical choices in the student response sheet. So here you'll see the format, the genre, so instrumental, vocal, or composition, the requirements for each example. If they're going to give musical performances, here are the requirements of the pieces that they need to select. And here are the requirements if they're going to go for music composition. The student reflection sheet gives them a chance to fill out which selection they chose, what genre it is in, and why it is important to them. To determine a rating for the portfolio, a panel of experts will collaborate on the student's work and come up with a score using the Ohio Department of Education Music K-12 Performance Rubric. The BOE data is recorded on the assessment profile sheet. There's the referral form points, and notice because they're only filling out certain sections that if you're in elementary school, the identification range is 23 to 27, middle school range, high school range. Musical aptitude profile, solo and ensemble performance, norm referenced observation scale. Here's the portfolio with the summary. And then the notification letter. So the other arts areas are similar in process. If you take a look at the visual arts, you'll see the key difference is in the norm reference test in step 3. Here, instead of using the musical aptitude profile test, we're going to use a norm referenced creativity test. 2 examples of these tests are the profile for creative abilities and the Torrance tests of creative thinking. Just like music, a portfolio of the student's work is required. And will be evaluated by a panel using the Ohio Department of Education K-12 Visual Art rubric. And the creativity portion of the SIGs will be used. The drama theater arts process is the same, using a theater arts rubric from the Ohio Department of Education. Okay, so there's 2 different ways to identify the psychomotor abilities. One is through dance and one is through athletics. So this is not about our star athletes, and we do not currently have dance programs in our district, but that doesn't mean that we don't have students who are not gifted in these areas. So here what we're looking for are students who may compete on a national level and need support because their art or their sport keeps them out of school often. So think about teenage Olympic athletes or dancers who perform around the country. The dance process is identical to the other arts processes. The athletic side of the psychomotor process, however, has much to do with documentation of national performance, exceptional ability, and also includes a letter from the governing body of the sport identifying the student as an elite athlete. So the final two areas are in creativity and leadership. Creativity is also similar to the arts areas, as it does require a portfolio of works that demonstrate creativity. When judging the portfolio, the Creative Product Assessment rubric developed by the Poudre Valley School District will be used. So the leadership process is unique in comparison with the other identification areas. In it, a student must go through an interview as part of the BOE. As you can see, the BOE can include a variety of artifacts that demonstrate leadership, including performance tasks, a resume, awards and honors, and letters of recommendation. Once those artifacts are put together, students will prepare for the interview, which is outlined clearly for the student. In the top half here in the portfolio checklist, it gives the requirements if a student chooses to put together a portfolio of projects that demonstrate leadership. On the second half of the page is the sample interview questions. The purpose of this interview is to provide the student an opportunity to share about yourself and your leadership goals. These questions are adapted from the Fountain Fort Carson School District, who are front runners in the leadership identification process in Colorado. The rubrics used here, we have our own leadership portfolio rubric. If a student chooses to submit a portfolio, we'll use the Fountain Fort Carson School District Leadership Interview rubric. Here's the assessment profile sheet for the leadership. Includes the referral form, portfolio, interview, and the determination, followed by the notification of formal gifted identification letter. Okay, so all of the assessments mentioned in the identification processes can be found in the matrix of commonly used GT assessments for Pueblo City schools. There's a brief summary of the assessment, appropriate age or grade levels, the time it takes to administer the assessment, and how the test is administered, so either individually or in a group. You will be able to find this matrix on the intranet page, and I'll show you where to find that in just a minute. So all of these assessments mentioned in the identification processes, plus all of the formal identification packets, is a lot to take in. So the best way to familiarize yourself with these documents is to use them. If you are a GT coordinator in your building, talk with your school leadership and your classroom teachers about these new processes and be a support for those people when building the body of evidence. So a couple of last-minute notes about these processes. Once a qualifying cognitive abilities test score or a referral comes back, 30 days to make a formal determination. This is part of ECEA law. It is important to work collaboratively with your colleagues so that one person is not responsible to collect the entire body of evidence. This is a team effort to do what is best for the child in question. Okay, so you can find all of the identification processes and the matrix on the Gifted and Talented intranet page. So I'm going to show you how to get there. So from your Symbaloo page, if you're a teacher, yours probably looks like this. You're going to want to click on the Department Intranet Sites link, Learning Services tab, and right underneath the Home tab, you see the Gifted and Talented. Depending on the size of your screen, it might be over here, but on my laptop, it's over here. We're going to click on that. This is a new page. Many of the pages are under construction within this section, but the Identification tab is up and running. So you'll click on the Identification tab on the left-hand side, and in it, it will have the definition and the legal requirements of the identification from the ECEA, the areas of identification, followed by some handy files down here. Here's where you can find all of the files for each area of identification, along with the matrix of assessments. Please note on the matrix of assessments that this is a working document, so assessments may be added or removed based on the needs of students and the Gifted Talented program. Our sections, tests of creative thinking, the observation behavior scales. I do recommend the SIGs, but we do have some other ones if you need to build an additional body of evidence. Achievement tests, which include things like the CMAS PARC, the SAT, the KTEA, the TEMA for math, and the TERA for reading, followed by our cognitive ability tests. We use the COGAT and the WISC-5. Okay, so here, you will also, I'll put a link here for this webinar. This will help people find it. So if you are listening, please share this page with your colleagues so they know where to look for it. And if you want to know everything there is to know about gifted identification in the state of Colorado, you'll click on this link and it will pull you up to a 28-page manual from CDE with everything you need to know about the laws, the regulations, and the processes around identifying a student gifted. And of course, this is a hot link too, so you can click on this from the webinar and you should be able to get right into that guidebook. Okay, well, I hope you found this information helpful in identifying the gifted students in your school. And we'll get you started in building a plan for students to best meet their needs. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Again, my name is Cindy Smith. My extension is 7284, or you can contact your school's gift coordinator. Thank you for attending today's webinar, and I hope you have a great day.